She asked for water from a well that no longer exists here, so we thought. What we found instead changed everything we believed about the past and what it means to come home. I still remember the heat that day, not just the kind that burns your skin, but the kind that settles into your bones, thick and heavy like silence after bad news. The air inside our house didn't move. The fans were on, but they didn't help. My brother Max was lying on the floor, face first into the tiles, trying to feel anything cool. Dad was in the garage, pretending to fix something, probably just to escape the tension in the living room. And Momshi stood next to Grandma's bed, quietly placing a glass of water on the side table. But Grandma didn't move. She stared straight ahead, not at Mom, not at the water. She was looking at something else, or someone, a picture. It sat on her lap like a memory she refused to let go of. I stepped closer. Her lips moved. I leaned in. "It's not the right water," she whispered. "It has to come from the well, the old well, the one on the farm." I froze. The farm? The one we left after the fire? The one they say still smells like smoke even after the rain? That place wasn't just abandoned, it was dangerous. Everyone in town knew that. Roads were blocked. Soldiers stood on the highway. Nobody went near it anymore. "But Grandma," Mom said gently, "we have water here. It's clean. From the tap." Grandma blinked slowly. Her fingers tightened on the photo in her lap. "He brought me water every morning," she said. "Your grandfather. From that well, before he died. It's the only water that ever made me feel alive." My mom didn't reply. None of us did. For a moment, all you could hear was the hum of the fan and the rattle of a loose window in the hallway. And then Grandma said something that still makes the hair rise on the back of my neck. "If you don't bring me water from that, well, I will never get out of this bed." Her eyes locked on mine. I wasn't sure if it was a request or a warning. That's when I knew I had to go. Before we go any further, if this story already has you feeling something deep, or maybe just a little curious about what's going to happen next, hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep telling stories like this, and gives me the motivation to make the next one even better. Now here's a question for you, and I want you to really think about it. If someone you love asked you to do something that feels impossible, would you A-D-O it, even if it's dangerous? B, stay safe and hope they understand. Comment your answer below, A or B. Let's see who you are. Mom sat with her hands folded, elbows on the kitchen table, her eyes distant but tired. She had that look again, the one she always wore when something needed to be said, but she didn't know how to say it. The old wooden clock ticked behind her. It was the only sound in the room. Outside, cicadas were buzzing, but inside, it was all stillness, like the air was waiting. I was still standing, leaning against the counter, holding the glass of water Grandma had just refused. My fingers were wet from condensation, but I didn't move. Neither of us did. Max was off in his room, probably drawing dinosaurs or robots. He didn't hear what Grandma said. Maybe that was better. "She's not thinking clearly," Mom finally said, her voice low, almost ashamed. "But she was," I said. "She was clear. She was more clear than I've seen her in weeks." "She's confused. She's old, Emily. She forgets things." "She didn't forget," I said. "She remembered the well. She remembered Grandpa. She even remembered how he used to bring her water." Mom's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw something flicker. Their grief, maybe, or memory, or both. "That place isn't safe," she said quietly. "Is it still burning?" I asked. "The fire was over a month ago." "The fire's out," she said. "But the land's still hot, smoldering in places. Some roads are blocked, others are watched, and we don't know what's left of the farm. It might not even be standing, but the well might still be there." She didn't answer. I walked over to the table and sat across from her. "She believes the water will help her," I said. "She believes a lot of things," Mom said. "Some of them aren't real anymore, but this is." Mom looked down at her hands. She used to wear a wedding ring, but she took it off years ago. Said it kept catching on things in the garden, but I knew that wasn't the reason. "I used to play near that well when I was a little girl," she said, after a long pause. "Your grandfather warned me never to lean over the edge. He said it was deep and dark, that even your voice didn't come back to you if you shouted into it. Just silence." She smiled for half a second, but then the smile faded. "After he died," she said, "your grandma never went back to the farm. I did once, just to see. Everything was the same. The trees, the swing, even the little bench he built under the big oak. But something was different too. Quieter, like the place had closed its eyes." I leaned forward. "Then you know how much it meant to her." "She's not getting better, Emily. Not with water, not with memories. She's old and tired, and she's already halfway gone. I'm just trying to keep her here a little longer. But not if it means losing you. I'll be careful." Mom looked at me like I was already packed and walking out the door. "It's not just the fire," she said. "There's a checkpoint. The National Guard's there. They won't just let you walk in. They have orders. Nobody goes past that road unless they have business. I'll talk to them. I'll tell them about Grandma. They won't care. Then I'll make them care." Mom stood up and walked to the sink. She poured herself a glass of water and drank half of it before setting it down. "You sound like him," she said. "Who?" "Your grandfather. Stubborn. Brave. Too brave, maybe." I didn't know what to say to that, so I stayed quiet. She turned around and studied me for a moment, as if she were measuring something invisible in me, something like strength, or maybe foolishness. "You really think she needs that water?" she said. "I don't know," I answered, "but I think she needs us to believe it's possible." A long silence filled the room, the kind that only exists between two people who love each other but don't agree. Then a new voice cut through the stillness. "I'll go with her." We both turned. Max stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face serious. "I heard everything," he said, "and I want to help Grandma too." Mom sighed, shaking her head. "No," she said, but I saw something shift in her eyes. Not yes, but not no forever. Later that night, I went into Max's room. He was packing a small backpack. "You really want to come?" I asked. "She gave me $1 last week, just because I told her my joke about the dragon and the pizza," he said. "She laughed so hard she almost fell out of bed." "That's a good reason," I said. "Also," he said, "you'll need someone to watch your back." "Fair." I looked at his backpack. He had a flashlight, a water bottle, and 3 of his favorite comic books. "You can't bring comics," I said. "Why not? We're not going on vacation." They helped me think. I didn't argue. The house was quiet when I stepped into the hallway again. Grandma's door was open just a crack. I peeked inside. She was asleep. The photo still rested on her chest. I wondered if she was dreaming. I hoped she was somewhere better, somewhere cooler, greener, with Grandpa walking up a dirt path holding a bucket full of cold, sweet well water just for her. I closed her door gently. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about the farm, about the smell of smoke still hanging in the trees, about the old oak and the swing, about the well, about what I would find there if anything. and whether what I'd bring back would be enough. We left before the sun rose. The air was cooler then, but it carried the weight of something waiting. I wore my old sneakers and a jacket tied around my waist, just in case. Max had his backpack slung over one shoulder and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. What we were doing didn't feel normal, and we both knew it. The road out of town was quiet. Too quiet. We passed the diner, the post office, the small church with its peeling white paint. Nobody was outside. Nobody saw us go. We cut through back roads and gravel paths, our shoes kicking up dust. Birds were just beginning to call in the trees, their voices soft, as if afraid to wake something sleeping. Max walked a little behind me, but his steps were steady. He didn't complain, not once. I kept thinking about what Mom said, about the checkpoint, about the guards. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe a fence, maybe warnings, maybe soldiers in big boots with rifles slung across their chests. I didn't tell Max that part. I figured we'd figure it out when we got there. By mid-morning, the heat had returned, crawling over our necks and backs like a second skin. My shirt clung to me. Max's cheeks were red, but he still smiled whenever I looked at him. We finally reached the highway, and there they were, 2 National Guard vehicles parked under the shade of a tall pine. A folding table sat between them. A young soldier leaned against the hood, sipping something from a thermos. He looked up when he saw us. I didn't wait for him to speak. "Hi," I said. "We're going to our grandmother's farm. She's very sick. She wants water from the old well." The soldier raised an eyebrow. "That farm, near the burn zone?" I nodded. He looked at Max, then back at me. "You know it's restricted, right? Roads beyond this point are closed to the public." "I know," I said, "but it's important. My grandmother used to live there with my grandfather. He died years ago. She believes the water from the well will help her." The soldier smirked, but not in a mean way. Just like someone who's heard stranger things. "Magic water, huh?" "I guess," I said. "Or maybe it's just memory water." He took a breath and looked around like he was checking if anyone else was watching. "You didn't hear this from me," he said. "But the fire's out. The area's still blocked off for safety, but you're not the first ones to walk in. Just stay on the path. If you see smoke, turn around." I nodded. "And if you do find magic water," he added, "bring me some." I smiled. "Deal." We kept walking. A few miles later, the road narrowed, and trees pressed closer together. There were no more cars, no signs, just the quiet sound of our feet on gravel. We stopped near a small wooden bridge. It looked old but sturdy. A tiny house sat just beyond it, its porch shaded by a wide maple tree. A woman stepped out as we passed. She wore a long green skirt and had silver hair pulled back in a bun. A small brown dog barked twice and ran toward Max. "Whoa!" Max said, laughing as the dog sniffed his shoes. "Where are you two headed?" the woman asked, her voice warm. "To our grandmother's old farm," I said. "She's sick. She wants water from the well." The woman tilted her head. "I have a well here. Clean, fresh water. You're welcome to take some." Max looked up at me, sweat on his forehead. "That sounds pretty good," he whispered. I shook my head gently. "Thank you," I told her. "But it has to be the old well. It means something to her." She nodded like she understood more than I was saying. "It's going to get hotter," she said. "You sure you're ready?" I looked back at Max. He nodded. "We're ready." By the time we reached the edge of the farm, something in the air had shifted. The heat felt heavier, thicker, like it was carrying old memories. The land looked forgotten, broken fence posts, cracked ground, the old house sagging like it was tired of standing. Max walked beside me in silence. This had once been our family's home. The well stood behind the house, half covered by weeds and the remains of a fallen wooden roof. The stone frame was weathered but solid. We stepped closer, unsure if it was real or just something left in Grandma's stories. Max leaned over and peered inside. There's still water. I tied what was left of the rope to an old dented bucket. Together, we lowered it slowly into the well. The pulley creaked with age, and the rope slid through our hands like it remembered every time it had been used before. We waited, then pulled. The bucket came up heavy. The water was cloudy, full of ash and dirt. Max frowned. We can't give her this. But something caught my eye under the water. I reached in and pulled out a small cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside were gold, coin-soled, worn, and real. Grandpa's, Mom once told me he never trusted banks. He'd hidden money around the farm. Max stared. She didn't want the water. She wanted this. I wasn't sure. Maybe she needed proof the past wasn't all gone, that something of him was still here. We kept the coins. I placed them back in the bucket and filled the top with oranges from the lone tree still standing at the edge of the field. As we started the walk back, I looked over my shoulder one last time. The house was still broken. The land was still dry. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like something had been found. Or remembered. We left the farm carrying the bucket between us. It was heavier now, not just from the oranges on top, but from the hidden truth wrapped beneath them. The gold coins felt like a secret we hadn't earned, but somehow had to carry. The sky turned soft with evening light, the kind that makes the world feel suspended in memory. Neither Max nor I spoke. There was too much to say, and no way to say it without breaking the quiet. When we reached the bridge, the woman was waiting. Her dog barked once, then wagged its tail. She stood, eyes on the bucket. Did you find it? We did, I said. I didn't explain. I think she already knew. Suddenly, a group of teenage boys appeared from the trees. One pointed at us. Hey, what's in the bucket? Just fruit, I replied, trying to sound calm. They moved closer. Max stepped behind me. My heart thumped. Then the dog growled a deep, warning sound. The boys paused. The woman walked forward slowly. Go home, she said. They hesitated, then turned and left. The dog settled. Max exhaled. You're lucky, the woman said. Some things we carry are heavier than they look. We thanked her and walked on. At the checkpoint, the same soldier smiled when he saw us. You made it, he said. Got any magic water? Just oranges, I said. He took one and waved us through. At home, Mom was by Grandma's bed. When she saw us, her eyes filled with disbelief. I placed the bucket gently beside Grandma. She looked at it, then at me. Is that? No, I said. It's his. She smiled. A small, tired smile full of light. She reached for the photograph of Grandpa on her nightstand and held it like a memory finally returned home. And in that quiet, something in all of us settled. Like the story had ended, right where it was meant to. The house felt different after we came back quieter, but not empty. More like a room after a long-held breath is finally released. Mom didn't ask many questions. She didn't need to. She looked into my eyes, then Max's, then at the bucket resting quietly on the floor beside Grandma's bed, and she understood, not the whole story maybe, but enough. Grandma's eyes were open, clear in a way they hadn't been for days. Her thin hand reached out and brushed the rim of the bucket. Her fingers paused there, resting on the old wood like it was something holy. She didn't ask what was inside. She didn't have to. That bucket, she whispered, was his. He carried it like it carried the world. I didn't speak. Neither did Max. We just stood beside her, still carrying the weight of that long walk. She smiled not wide, not full, but the kind of smile that means something has been put back into place. Then she looked at the photograph of Grandpa on the table beside her bed and whispered something I couldn't hear. Maybe it wasn't meant for us. Maybe it was just for him. Later that night, Mom peeled oranges in the kitchen. Max sat at the table, telling her about the dog, the bridge, and how close we came to losing everything. I listened from the hallway. I didn't join in. I just watched Grandma sleep, her breathing slow but steady. Her face looked softer now, the lines on her forehead eased, like whatever had been heavy inside her had finally let go. The coins were hidden in a drawer upstairs. We didn't talk about them, not yet. They could wait. What mattered was here in this moment, in this breath, in this house full of things we almost lost and somehow found again. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, soft and low. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a home remembering who it was. A few days passed, and the bucket stayed by Grandma's bed like it belonged there. No one moved it. No one asked about it. It just sat quietly, holding more than just fruit or old metal. It held something we couldn't name. She touched it often, as if to remind herself it was real. She had more energy now. Not much, but enough to sit up sometimes, to eat a little, to speak in full sentences again. She didn't talk about the coins or the farm, but she did talk about Grandpa. She told Max a story about how he once fell into the creek trying to catch a chicken, and how he came back soaked but grinning like he'd just won something. She laughed a little when she said it. That laugh, thin and breathy, sounded like the beginning of something healing. One evening, I sat next to her while the sun was setting. The window was open, and warm air drifted through the curtains. She looked at the sky for a long time. "You know," she said softly, "he never believed in holding on too tight. Always said the best things in life couldn't be kept, they had to be given, or they'd disappear." I didn't know if she was talking about the coins, or about him, or maybe about all of it. I just listened. Max came into the room, carrying one of the last oranges. He peeled it slowly and handed her a slice. She smiled and took it, chewing slowly, then held his hand for a moment longer than usual. That night, something changed. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just a feeling, the kind that makes you turn around in a quiet room because you think someone just walked in, even when no one did. Grandma was sleeping, peaceful and still. The photograph of Grandpa lay beside her pillow, her fingers resting near it. And the house, for the first time in what felt like forever, was completely silent. Then, from somewhere outside, we heard it. Not a voice, not a sound we could name. Just the soft movement of wind brushing the trees, curling through the grass, wrapping around the house like a memory. Max looked at me. "Was that the wind?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I just smiled. Sometimes, the things we search for aren't really things at all. They're pieces of love, memory, and belonging wrapped in old places and familiar objects. The journey to the farm wasn't about water. It was about connection, legacy, and the quiet truths we carry without knowing. What we found in that well wasn't just treasure, it was proof that some parts of the past still wait for us to return. Sometimes healing doesn't come from fixing things, but from remembering what made them matter in the first place. In your own life, don't be afraid to revisit places, people, or memories that shaped who you are. They may still have something to give you. Have you ever returned to a place from your past and found something unexpected, something meaningful? Comment yes or no below and share your story if you'd like. If this story moved you even a little, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us keep creating stories that stay with you long after they end.